Good evening, everybody. My name is Huge Pop. Welcome to the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. And tonight we have another Worship with a Purpose with CWF. Tonight's guest has joined the CWF in 2003. He's one of the first trainees at the Old Rock Gym, where the CF formerly made its home. He is a former children's pastor and has been to 3 international mission trips with CWF. He claims to be the man who's putting sports back in sports entertainment. Welcome to the show, Phil, the real deal Bishop. How you doing, my guy?
Thank you, Scott. I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So we're just going to dive right into your 20-year career and where it started, but I'm sure it started way back before you became a pro wrestler as a fan. So how did you first become interested in professional wrestling?
I was 5 years old. We were on vacation in Dallas, Texas. We were in a hotel, and my dad was sitting on the edge of the bed. He was watching something. It was way past my bedtime as a 5-year-old, and I heard the announcer introduce the Iceman King Parsons. Okay. And in my 5-year-old mind, I'm thinking the Iceman from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
There.
So I sat up and I said, "Dad, what are you watching?" He said, "Well, come up here and watch it with me." And Iceman King Parsons, a famous wrestler from World Class Championship Wrestling in this area in the 80s, had come down to the ring, and he was wrestling the one-man gang. And okay. I remember the match like it was yesterday. I was mesmerized. I was like, what is this? I love this. And I became a fan at the age of 5.
Wow. So would you say growing up, that was your huge pop moment of that's what you remember watching?
That is definitely a huge pop moment. Absolutely.
Awesome. So what, other than that moment with the Iceman, was there other moments that made you start loving wrestling?
You know, I remember when Ric Flair wrestled Kerry Von Erich in Texas Stadium for the world title. It was right after David had passed, and they let Kerry wrestle for him. And I remember the announcer introducing Ric Flair as the recognized world champion. And so, you know, I grew up realizing that, you know, Flair was the man. He was the guy that legitimately took that belt to every promotion around the world and defended it. And, you know, it wasn't like, you know, the AWA champ or the WWF champ at the time. You know, those guys were just kind of in their own little territories. Ric Flair went everywhere. He was the real world champion, if you will.
Right. Kind of like the real deal.
Yes.
Well, play on words, right?
I love it.
What wrestling do you currently watch?
I actually currently don't watch wrestling.
You're lucky. No, I'm not saying it's not bad, but do you have any top 5 male wrestlers that you would say, yep, these are the top 5?
Top 5 would be Ric Flair, Sting, Eddie Guerrero,
okay,
Shawn Michaels,
okay,
and Bret Hart.
Awesome. That's good choices, man. Sting's my favorite. So
that's my Mount Rushmore.
Yes. What inspired your ring name?
It was actually given to me at the curtain of my first match. I had this entire persona of a completely different character, and I'm getting ready to go out for my first match. And Rob Vaughn, the promoter and president here, said, "What do you want to go out as?" And I told him, and he said, "Nope, you're going to be the Bishop." And so I was the Bishop for the longest time. Then I just became Bishop, and then I became Phil Bishop. And then, you know, I always loved Evander Holyfield, Real Deal Holyfield.
Yeah.
And so in the mid 2000 teens, I adopted the Phil the Real Deal Bishop moniker.
Awesome, man. So when did you actually start getting into the business? Like, what did you say? Yep, this is what I have to do.
You know, I had probably pursued it 2 or 3 years before I joined the training school at the Christian Wrestling Federation. What I found in the late 90s is that if you weren't 6'2", 250 pounds, people didn't want to train you. I had gone to several different wrestling schools where people did not want to train me. And I found out really quick that I wasn't, I guess, welcome in the wrestling world until I just happened to meet Rob Vaughn, and he invited me to start training.
So Rob Vaughn was So his school was where you started at, and was he your trainer, or did you have other guys in there training you?
No, we had a guy by the name of Jeremy Jett that was my trainer. Jeremy was really big on the indie scene here in Texas. Phenomenal wrestler, great trainer. AJ Styles said of him that if he went to TNA, he would rule the X division. But he never went to TNA. I know he did some stuff overseas in Japan, but really just kind of stayed local.
Okay. So did I read right where you dabbed in some promotion called TCW?
I did. I wrestled 2 matches with Matt Riviera in traditional championship wrestling out of Arkansas.
Now, I don't know if I read it right, but was there a guy named the Giant Titan?
Yes.
Manager Boyd Bradford in 2013?
Yes.
15, sorry. Walk us through that match. What was that like? That guy looked like he was whipping you around the ring. He was huge.
He's a gigantic individual. You get thrown in matches, and if you want to get invited back, you don't say no. So I went in with the attitude of I'm gonna give it my all. And I think in that match, I got one offensive move, and that was me coming off the top rope. And he's such a large individual, he caught me and threw me around like a sack of potatoes. And I remember he won giving me the choke slam. And I remember after the show, one of the ring announcers came and said, "Man, he really got you up there." So
I watched that video like this afternoon. I'm like, holy cow. So
he definitely had me a good 8 feet or so in the air.
So was TCW the only one that you outside of CWF?
Yeah, so there was a benefit show for a local referee who passed away several years ago. There was a local benefit show after he got sick, and I think that was around 2015 that I wrestled out there just to help benefit him. But other than that, I'm a CWF guy for life.
So there's no interest or going anywhere other than CWF.
Correct.
That's awesome. That's great loyalty, man. Can you describe your training and challenges that you faced when starting out in the wrestling community or
Sure.
industry?
So I'm a little bit smaller than most of the big guys. I'm about 5 feet 7 inches. Top out at about 210. On a really good day, I could hit 215, but I hover around 200. But at the time, I was 160 pounds when I started training. And I've been an athlete. I played football in high school. I played baseball and basketball. I was very involved in martial arts, and professional wrestling training was the single hardest, most difficult thing I had ever done in my life. As fans, we watch it on TV, we play the video games, and we think we can just get in and do this stuff. But I will tell you, the first 90 days of professional wrestling training will make or break you. Most people leave in the first month, but your body is taking the equivalent of a minor car accident 3 to 4 days a week when you're training. So it was a lot of ibuprofen, a lot of hot baths, and a lot of chiropractic work to get me through that. It was the most physically demanding thing I've ever done.
Now, I read in your little thing, but there was a possibility that you didn't even get to your first match, because didn't you have a break, right?
Yeah. So, professional wrestling training, everybody's different. Sometime between 6 months and a year is when you'll get cleared to do your first match. We were practicing crossbodies, and my trainer thought it'd be a good idea to duck out of the way and have me just eat the canvas. And just like anybody, if you're falling, what do? You put your hands out in front of you. And I did. I ended up snapping my wrist, and it set me back 4 months before I could get back in the ring again.
Wow. So, but you got back. Praise God. I think I read you healed faster than you thought that people thought you would.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I think I read that people feel you healed faster than what they thought you would.
Yes, very much
so. So that's praise God, man. So in the CWF, you got those crazy guys called the Bible Club, right? Big Fitz, all them boys, Luke 9. Set that aside. What's the most memorable or intense match you've ever been part of, and what made it that stand out to you?
I think probably the most intense match. Now, are we talking about the Bible Club or in general?
In general.
Okay. I think the most intense match was Elijah Burke had just been released from WWE.
Okay.
He came down to CWF. I was not a nice guy at that time. And so Rob was an active wrestler at the time, and he and I were having some issues. So Elijah Burke was brought in as an enforcer. If I put my hands on Rob Vaughn, I had to wrestle Elijah Burke. Well, I put my hands on Rob Vaughn, and I got in the ring with Elijah Burke. Now, I will tell you, at this time I was a 7-year veteran. I had wrestled many times. I'd wrestled around the world, and I think I was probably at the peak of where I was at that point. So getting in the ring with someone from WWE, I felt that I matched his abilities in the ring because he went through the same training I went through. He laces his boots up one lace at a time. But I will tell you, there was a difference between a WWE superstar and myself. He was 2 to 3 steps ahead of me the entire match. And it was very evident that he was on just a little bit different level than what I was. So for me, I had to really step up to be able to keep up with him and to be able to hang with him and to be able to have a good match. But that was probably the most intense match. He chopped me 27 times in that match. The blood vessels in my chest were going crazy. I had just blue and red marks all over my chest. It was a very painful match.
Wow, I bet, man. So that's going to come back to this next question. So Elijah Burke, Lodi, Shawn Michaels, AJ Styles, they all came through, and you made reference to a WWE superstar is like 2 steps ahead of you at all times. How do you prepare mentally and physically for the big match like that? Is it any different preparing for that kind of match or compared to going up against big fits?
It's actually not. I think when somebody of those calibers, somebody like a Lodi or a Michael Tarver, somebody comes in, you're wanting to put your best foot forward. So you're eating right, you're exercising, you're making sure your cardio's up because you want to do the best job possible. Because I think Michael Tarver said it best. One of the things he learned in WWE is to always have his bag packed and by the door because you never know if they're going to call you back. Well, if I have a great match with somebody like that and they get called back up to the big show, well, if I had a great match with them, then maybe they'll say something to somebody. Hey, I wrestled this guy, Phil, in Texas. You might want to check him out. And then that could potentially get me up to that level.
Right. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. What do you enjoy more about being a professional wrestler, and what keeps you motivated before you? Because I know you retired here just like last in May. So what kept you motivated in the gym and all that stuff?
Really the first lesson I had as a professional wrestler, my trainer said, everybody thinks they're good enough to be on the big stage, WWE, TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever it is. So next time you're watching a show, take your shirt off, stand in front of the TV. And if you don't look like the guys on TV, you have no business being in a wrestling ring. And so that just always stuck with me. This is the kind of thing that you really have to be in shape. There's being in shape and then there's being in ring shape. And right. So ring stamina and, having gas in the tank, you can get blown up very, very easily if you are not in the best shape of your life at all times. Also, having that mental picture in my head, I'm going to take my shirt off in front of 200, 300, 400, 500 people. I want to look the best I can when I have my shirt off. So that's been my driving force of staying in the gym and dieting and trying to look my best and feel my best and, fuel my body to be able to get in the ring and do what we do.
Absolutely. Can you share any memorable interactions with fans or moments that you made you realize the impact you have made as a wrestler?
The night before my final match, and granted, we didn't know it was going to be my final match going into it. That was the stipulation. We had a fan. We had a fan that was murdered a few months ago, and we'd gotten really close with her mother. And so the night before the show, we were doing a show elsewhere, and the mother was there, and she came to me and she was crying, and she said, "I need you to win for my daughter tomorrow night." And when you think about something as emotional as a 15-year-old girl having her life ended prematurely because of somebody else's choice, and the mother believing so much in you and what you do that she's wanting you to win for the memory of her daughter. That's really powerful to think that people put me in a position like that in their life.
That's really honorable too, man. That's wow, humbling to say
Very,
the least. To say
very,
the least.
very humbling.
Wow. That blows these next questions away. But what do you say when you hear fans yelling, "This is fake"?
It's real simple. Every Monday night from 7 to 9 at the Lauditorium in Fate, Texas, we get in the ring and we train. You think it's fake? Show up on a Monday night. I'll give you 15 minutes until you puke or pass out.
Wow. I'm going to be there in December 2024, and I'm not going to get in the ring and try that, all right? I'm just saying. We'll just leave it there. You can tell Rob and everybody, I'm not getting in the ring.
I will relay the message.
I'll stay outside the ring. Unless the Bible Club needs help. No? Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
Something I've been very curious about is what kind of moves really hurt the most?
We were talking about Titan earlier. Titan gave me that choke slam. Big Fitz, before he was ever a member of the Bible Club, gave me a choke slam like that. And it jarred me pretty bad. I had to have some chiropractor work done. But things like that, drop kicks, chops, of course, hurt. Body slams, hip tosses, backdrops. One of the moves that I took in my last match, the superplex off the top rope. Man, that'll knock the wind out of you. We were in Baltimore, Maryland, and I took a superplex, and I thought I broke my rib. You've got to be on your toes. You've got to be focused, and you've got to be ready at every moment in that ring, because any single one move that we do could potentially end your career, cripple you, or potentially end your life. We are literally putting our lives in the hands of someone else, and they're putting their lives in our hands. And it's a very serious thing. So we have to be laser focused.
Awesome. How important are the fans and the merch tables and the meet and greets after your events? How important is that to you guys, to you personally?
Without the fans, we can't do what we do. So we've got to have people that are going to show up to support us and cheer us on. So those relationships, whether it's in person at a meet and greet, at the merchandise table, over social media, those interactions are huge, because those are the people that are going to literally pay money to come and watch us or support us, buy a shirt, buy a picture, whatever whatever it is. They are our lifeblood. They are everything to us. Those interactions and those relationships are paramount to what we do in professional wrestling.
And I love what you guys do at CWF. It's nothing like any other promotion.
No.
I've been to indie shows here in Panama City, Florida, where I live. Well, I live in Fort Walton Beach, but in Panama City, there's a indie wrestling show. And they have fans, and the stars sign stuff like that. So the connections, but nothing like what you guys do at an end of a match.
Right.
So best part of that, of the CIC event that CWF that I've watched is the event's over with. Rob Vaughn or whoever is up that night stands in the middle of the ring, and they give the word, and then you guys all pray for everybody.
Yes.
That is amazing to me. Can you explain that atmosphere and how emotional it gets for you after you just put your life on the line doing a match? Your heart pours out everything that you have left.
Absolutely. So, Rob and I, all of us, we take turns delivering a gospel presentation. The whole purpose of the Christian Wrestling Federation, what I tell people is that we are not Christians who want to be wrestlers. We are wrestlers who are Christians. And so because of my faith in Jesus Christ, I want to take the talents and the gifts that he's given me to give back to him. And so the best way to do that is to take two things that I'm incredibly passionate about: professional wrestling and Jesus Christ, and merge them into one. And so our goal as Christians, the very last command Jesus gave us before he ascended into heaven, was to go into all the world and preach the gospel, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, one of the ways that we do that is by putting on a professional wrestling show, whether it's at our home auditorium here in Fate, Texas, or whether we're traveling the world, people that would never step foot in a church will go to watch a wrestling match. And then you just said it best, Huge Pop. You said, we just put our life on the line. After we have done what we do in the ring and we have earned their respect, they are wide open to be able to hear how to receive that gift of Jesus Christ. And we take that very, very, very seriously. We are all Christians, and we consider ourselves ministers, and we consider what we do in the ring as a form of worship. So everything is about trying to get one more person to receive that gift of Jesus Christ. And then again, we're there at ringside to pray with them, to talk with them. If they want to talk at the merch table, there's a lot of times people may hear a gospel message. They may not respond right then and there, but then maybe after the show, they'll come up and talk to you privately, or they'll want private prayer, or they'll want to talk to you more, or they'll reach out to you on social media. It is the single most important thing that we do, is presenting the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's awesome, man. I've been a part of, I was a youth pastor up in Michigan when I lived up there before we came down and got in the ministry of caring for parentless kids, so
right.
We've been to Acquire the Fires. We had stand strength team, and so the event itself is like 3 hours long. Then you guys have got to be there most of the day, so it's got to be physically draining and exhausting, mentally and physically. So
Yes.
my hats goes off to you guys and how long you stay after the event. So and how much love you share for the kids and the people that are just wanting prayer. So that's incredible. And I will say this again. I thank CWF, everybody that I've had on here, for the time that they share with us, the prayers at the end for my family and everybody around. And I really 100% appreciate you guys. You guys have no idea. Well, yeah, you do. You guys are great people, and I appreciate that. So,
well, thank you. But we appreciate you giving this opportunity to, hopefully branch out to a wider audience and get more people to know about the CWF and tune into our shows that we have twice a month and post them on our YouTube and Facebook channels.
Yes, that's the purpose. So I'm just curious, where's the craziest place you went with CWF?
Craziest place? I mean, I've been in Mexico, been in Puerto Rico, been in Nigeria, been to Egypt. Egypt was a wild place, man. Egypt was wild, but seeing the way that people responded in Nigeria was amazing, because we had Muslim people that were coming to the ring because they wanted to receive Christ. And there was one night I was in the ring, and it's just a sea of people. There's nothing to do in Nigeria. So when you set up a wrestling ring in a public place and you're playing music, people just come from all over. And so it's just a sea of people, and to see people praising God and giving their lives to God at a wrestling ring in the middle of Nigeria, that was probably the craziest thing I've ever seen. The experiences that we had over there were unlike any other experiences I've ever had.
Well, that's awesome, man. So, of course, I told you I have kids, 8 foster kids, and they have questions. So,
okay,
the rapid fire quick kids questions. What's your favorite food?
Hamburger.
Favorite song?
Rodeo by Garth Brooks.
Favorite cartoon?
Justice League.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Sometimes.
Do you acknowledge the tribal chief?
Not at all. No.
And what's your favorite Bible verse?
Titus 1:7, because my name is Phil the Real Deal Bishop. Titus 1:7 talks about what it takes to be a leader or a bishop in the church. So Titus 1:7 is my favorite.
Awesome. Those questions just happened tonight as I was getting ready to come down here. They were like, Mr. Scott, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to go, man. I got to go. And they said, can I ask these questions? I'm like, well, they're the same question I ask every time. They go, well, still. I've had the same 7 kids for the last 3 months. So
I like the one about the tribal chief, but no, I do not acknowledge the tribal chief.
Wrestling has a rich history of colorful characters and storylines. What has been your favorite character or storyline to be part of, and why?
For me to be a part of?
Yeah.
My favorite storyline that I was a part of was Ryan Hart and I have been tag team partners on and off for the last 15 years. We have been tag team champions multiple times. And there was a few years ago, after we'd had a falling out and he was doing his own thing, he had a new tag team partner, and they were the tag team champions. And due to a series of unfortunate events, his tag team partner had to leave the ministry. So it came time for a tag team match, and the challengers are in the ring, and Ryan Hart's in the ring, but he does not have a tag team partner. And if he did not have a tag team partner by the count of 10, they were going to strip him of the CWF tag team titles. Okay. And at the 8 count, I ran into the ring to become his tag team partner. And here's where the storyline gets great. We won that match, but I was not a tag team champion. Ryan Hart was the CWF tag team champions, and I was his tag team partner, introduced as Just Phil.
Really?
And it was my most favorite storyline we've ever done, because it's this big, coming to the ring, the CWF tag team champion, Ryan Hart, and his tag team partner, Phil. And I loved that. It was so much fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
So how'd that end up playing out?
Eventually, he lost and we split up.
Now, were you part of that loss? Were you the reason why you lost?
Man, that was a long time ago. I've slept since then. I don't think I was the reason for the loss. I think if I took the pin, they wouldn't strip the belts from him, because I'm not one of the tag team champions. So I think it had to be him that lost to get the belts taken off of him.
So do you feel at CWF and anywhere that gimmicks are important in wrestling?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have any favorite gimmicks growing up, watching wrestling growing up?
You know, Ric Flair was my favorite growing up, and I think it was because I liked the over-the-top confidence, the robes, the bleach blonde hair, the attitude. And the thing about Ric Flair in the 80s and the early 90s was he talked a lot of trash, but he backed it up, you know? And so, you know, yeah, he won belts and he lost belts, but I loved that over-the-top, colorful persona. I remember as a 15-year-old, I remember my dad sitting me down to talk to me about who my heroes are, because I really, really liked Ric Flair.
Awesome. So you've been in the business for 20 years.
20 years.
How has storylines developed from the time you got into the business to now?
You know, really, it's the same. You know, the booker, when you get to the show, is going to tell you, you know, who you're wrestling, what's going on. They're really the ones that drive that. More on the indie scene, you get a little more creative control over your matches and your storylines, especially here in CWF. Rob gives a lot of creative control. So we just want to put together a story that, number one, is going to be impactful, because at the end of the day, my storyline is not about me. It's about impacting somebody in the crowd to be able to receive that gospel message. So everything that we do has to build to the testimony time, which occurs in the middle of the show, and then eventually that gospel presentation time at the end of the show. So, you know, I think when I first started, it was all like there was a specific story leading up to the testimony, then from the testimony to the main event to go into the gospel. You know, we were able to really experiment with different storylines and different things through the years to really catch the attention of the crowd so that they would be receptive to our message when we gave it to them.
That's awesome. In the CWF, do you have a favorite storyline today?
Today, you know, I like what's going on the Uprising show. Right now, you've got Justin James, who is the largest athlete in our organization, 360 pounds. He's the interdenominational champion. And we have some of the youngest, some of the greatest talent in and around Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and New Mexico that is coming in for these shows. And so they've been competing for who's going to be that number one contender to go up against Justin James. And the storyline that I'm most excited about is Omega. And I think my heart goes out to Omega because Omega is a little bitty guy. He is the smallest guy on the roster, but he has the heart of a champion. We have seen him come so far in the ring just in the last year. I can tell you, this kid has gotten better and better, and he's been on a winning streak. And so I am so excited to see the smallest man on the roster go up against the biggest man on the roster for the interdenominational championship.
That's intense, man. So that what day is that show on?
October 29th, I believe, is that one.
Okay, so now that part of you do 2 shows a month, correct?
Yes, we have CWF Eternal, which is our veterans, I guess, kind of like our A program, if you will. Then we have CWF Uprising. Uprising is kind of like NXT.
Okay,
it's the newer guys, the younger guys. It's guys coming up in the business, and they're trying to make a name for themselves, not just in CWF, but in professional wrestling.
So all those guys in Uprising, are they part of the guys that I talk to Jeremy all the time. Are those all CWF roster guys, all a part of the CWF ministry?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. A part of the ministry, yes. But they're not always here on Monday nights. Okay. They're not really part of the core group. Okay. And the reason why is because most of these guys aren't necessarily in the Rockwall area. Some of them are in the Dallas area, but we've got guys coming from Austin. Matter of fact, one of our stars, Ozzy, who trains at the Rhodes Wrestling Academy in Austin, he was with us through the summer, but he's now gone back to Austin to train with Dustin Rhodes. We've got some guys from Dallas that have their home promotion in Dallas, DFW All Pro Wrestling. Lamont Williams is the trainer down there. Big on the indie scene, phenomenal professional wrestler. He's the guy that trained Michael Tarver. He's worked with us a lot. So they've got their home promotions there. A lot of them are down in Houston, Texas, Bryan, Texas A&M with Lions Pride Sports. So a lot of the guys don't have the ability to come and be a part of what we do on Monday nights, simply because of the distance that they have to get back to their places.
Gotcha. I remember watching Daytona Beach, WCW, when Hogan come down because Macho Man was getting his butt beat, and here you got the Outsiders and Hall and Nash, and we're all like, oh yeah, here comes Hogan. And he backstabbed all the fans, and he turned on Macho Man and created probably the best faction in NWO. And the storyline it was unbelievable. It lasted forever, it seemed like. Is there a memorable storyline when you're growing up watching professional wrestling?
I grew up in the 80s, so World Class Championship Wrestling was huge. The Freebirds versus the Von Erichs were the biggest thing. It was all anybody talked about. I think that was one of the greatest rivalries of all time. Texas versus Georgia, family values versus what the Freebirds represented, which was not family values. That was a phenomenal story. I will tell you that I loved the NWO storyline. I was absolutely convinced it was an outside organization coming in to take over WCW. To have Scott Hall and then Kevin Nash show up, and we all knew they were Big Daddy Diesel and Razor Ramon. Oh my gosh, they're on WCW. It was so well done, that whole invasion angle. I think about Sting and Nikita Koloff. The Russian Nightmare and Sting. I'm talking Surfer Sting with the bleach blonde hair and the vibrant makeup, and those were great storylines. The Horsemen were so compelling. This group of elite athletes that, they party together, they wrestle together, they work out together, and they win together. And they had all the belts. I mean, that just anything that they did was gold. So lots of really memorable storylines.
I know they got one going on. Of course, the Bloodline is I can relate. I love the Bloodline because how they bring family into it.
Yeah.
I have a brother and I. My brother and I, we banter back and forth over football games, and he likes these teams. I like my, and it showed. It just, you can be brothers. Mm-hmm. You have issues with each other, but you can be brothers.
Yeah.
And I like that storyline as well. So your finisher is the Cross Factor.
Yes.
Right? How did that come about?
Once again, my very first match, I was wrestling a gentleman by the name of Devastator, and he was on the CWF roster. And he asked me what my finisher was, and I didn't have a finisher. And he said, "Can you do the X Factor that Sean Waltman does?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "There's your finisher." Well, we're the Christian Wrestling Federation, so I didn't call it the X Factor. I called it the Cross Factor. But that was how my finisher, my name and my finisher were given to me in my first match.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So if I was a young and up-and-coming guy that wants to get into business, or if I came to CWF on Monday nights and say, "Hey, I want to try this out," what advice would you give to a aspiring professional wrestler looking to break into the business?
It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. I don't care what athletics you've been in before. You need to be in tip-top shape when you walk in that door. So start cutting out the carbs, start working out, start working on your stamina, get in shape, and get ready to hurt continually for the next 3 months.
Awesome. So I hate using this word idols, but who are some of your idols and influencers, and how they have shaped your career?
So talking about wrestlers, I assume.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ric Flair. My heel persona is just I just emulate Ric Flair. I just love the guy. He's my favorite. Shawn Michaels, and I was very late to the party on Shawn Michaels. I was not a WWF guy. I was a WCW guy. I was an NWA guy. So it wasn't until I joined CWF and everybody was saying Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels. When I started watching his work, I realized how amazing he was. You had asked me earlier what wrestling promotions I watch now, and I told you I don't watch wrestling. And there's a very distinct reason for that, because for me, the day that Shawn Michaels lost that retirement match to The Undertaker, for me was the day that professional wrestling died. And it just hasn't been the same since. I haven't been able to get excited about a product since then. I did try out AEW for a little bit, but it lasted about 8 weeks, and then I ended up tuning out. I like Cody Rhodes. I was at WrestleMania when Cody Rhodes made his debut back at WWF or WWE, and I popped and squealed like an 8-year-old girl. So I think Cody is very underrated. Always been a Cody fan. I love Cody. We talked about Sting. I love Sting. I love his body of work. I love that he was lost. Now he's found. I love that he is back being a mentor in professional wrestling in AEW. Bret Hart, just an amazing technical wrestler. You can learn a lot from people like Bret Hart, Eddie Guerrero, and I'm going to say it, Pop. I'm going to say it. Chris Benoit.
There you go.
Probably the greatest wrestler that ever lived. It's a tragedy what happened, but you cannot take away from his body of work as a wrestler. That man makes you believe what's going on is real and that he's hurting someone.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So Sting, I totally love Sting. I love Sting from Surfer Sting, NWO. I loved when he went into the Rafter. That was probably my favorite Sting era. Now I love what he's doing in AEW.
Yep.
I'm a big AEW fan. I like him and Darby Allin teaming up, and he was in the ring last night when Edge showed up at the big event they had. So when I say that, I say those names: Edge, Sting, Cody Rhodes, all those vets that spend time in the back. Even the vets that come into CWF, like the AJ Styles, the Michaels, the Lodis, and all those guys that you named. How important is it for you guys as wrestlers, as workers, or whatever? How important it is to listen to those guys and what they have to say?
Hugely important. Those guys have been on stages we have not been on. Every single professional wrestler has a dream of being on the stage that those guys were on. So we literally hang on every single word that they say. If they've got a word of advice, we listen to it, we take it, and we take it respectfully. We don't get offended. Oh, you didn't think my kicks were good? Yes, sir, absolutely going to work on that. It is vitally important that you listen to the people that came before you. So anyone that's in the sport right now or thinking of getting in the sport, you have to listen to the vets. You have to listen to them because they've been where you haven't, and they know things that you don't. So it is vitally important to listen to those guys and be respectful. Awesome.
Now, Cody Rhodes, you mentioned that he's underutilized or under whatever the word you use.
Underrated.
Underrated. I believe he's underrated. People misunderstand what I say. When I watched that WrestleMania that he came back, I thought WWE is not using him correctly, still not using him correctly, and they lost him somewhere. Now they're trying to bring it back, and I'm like so frustrated with it because I do like Cody Rhodes, and I'm just like, guys, come on. So, anyways, in addition to your in-ring work, you've been involved in charitable, community-based interactive as a wrestler in the ministry. Can you talk about the ministries you're involved in with CWF?
As far as CWF, one of the big things for us is, we're doing training next door right now in the ring. And then when we finish that, we're going to do Bible study. That Bible study is a men's Bible study. We are a men's ministry. And so with the men's ministry, there comes things that specifically men struggle with that maybe don't want to be open about in public settings. But when you get a group of like-minded Christians together, the Bible says there's no condemnation for those in Christ. Philippians 4:13 says, just like iron sharpens iron, so does one man another. I take my job as a mentor, as a trainer, and as a man of God very seriously because, we just got through talking about listening to the vets. I'm a 48-year-old man. I've dealt with some things some of the younger guys have not, and I've overcome sins that the younger guys have not. So I have insight to help these men become better men. I've got insight to help the husbands become better husbands. I've got insight to help these men become better fathers. And even the ones that aren't husbands and fathers yet, they're going to be husbands and fathers someday. So we definitely take that very, very seriously with the training that we do physically as well as spiritually. Now you take it to the shows. I'm a minister just like Rob, just like any other guys. So I am prepared to preach the gospel anytime, anywhere, any place. And so if at the last minute Rob's like, hey, I want you to get up and give the gospel message, man, I've got 7 or 8 outlines of quick little sermonettes that I can give at the drop of a hat. I take the responsibility of sharing the gospel very seriously and praying with people in the crowd very seriously. And what I have to remind myself is that I may be the only Jesus that someone ever sees. So it's very important that I am on my toes and I am living my life correctly and properly, and that I'm prepared in and out of season to do what the Lord's called me to do.
Awesome. How many guys come to that Monday night's Bible study?
It's generally around 15. We've had upwards of 20 and 30 at different times. And the thing about the Bible study, it's not just for the guys in CWF. Any man is welcome to show up on Monday night for fellowship and then stick around for the Bible study. I'm on the prayer team at my church. And last week I had prayed for a gentleman to come forward. He wanted to be a better husband, a better father. So I prayed with him. I prayed for him. And as soon as church was over, I made a beeline to him. And I said 2 things. I got a book you need to read, and I've got a men's Bible study you need to be a part of. I invited him to our Bible study. Now, I wasn't here last week, so I don't know if he showed up. Nobody told me that he did, so I assume he did not. But that Bible study is open for anybody. If you're in the DFW area on a Monday night and you want to come check out what we do, that's anybody listening to this broadcast. 3025 East I-30 in Fate, Texas, halfway between Rockwall and Royce City. We would love to have you.
So now, is CWF made out of many different churches? I mean, do you guys in the CWF roster come from different churches around the area? That's awesome.
Yes. We have that interdenominational championship. And the reason why we have that is because the CWF is not a church. We are a ministry. We are an extension of the church. And there are a lot of different faiths, a lot of different churches that represent CWF. And what I always tell people is it doesn't matter what the name on your church is. I had a shirt in high school that said Christ is life. And on the back, it said everything else is details. Jesus Christ is at the center of what we do. We believe the Bible. We believe it's the inerrant word of God. So it doesn't matter how you choose to worship or what the church is. If you acknowledge Christ as the Messiah and as your Lord and Savior, then you have a home and you are welcome in CWF.
That's awesome, man. What are your future goals within helping out with CWF?
So I have transitioned into kind of a backstage agent kind of a thing, working with the guys, developing their personalities, developing their characters. I still help with training, developing their moves. But I want to make sure that we're not being repetitive. A guy that does a neck breaker in the first match, well, I don't need to see a neck breaker in the second match, the third match, or the fourth match. So making sure that the moves aren't being repetitive, that everyone is doing something different and everyone is trying to become the best that they can be. During the shows, I'm actually part of the broadcast team now. So I actually do color commentary with Bobby Graham. I've been in the business for 20 years. I can see so much and talk about so much and, what's involved in the move, what body part it's working on. So I've really, really enjoyed the last several months being on the broadcast team and calling the matches.
That's awesome. Bobby Graham was epic. That was one of the coolest things ever. Well, of course, I had to give him all kinds of heck with the Bible Club song because
Oh yeah.
I played it like 2 or 3 times, so he loved it. So communication in the ring. How do referees function? I'm sorry, no. How important is communication between workers and the back people in the back and the referee, and to make this whole thing go?
I mean, it's crucial. You got to be listening. There's going to be times where you gotta give instructions to a referee, or a referee's got to give instructions to you, so that you're clear on what's going on and we're taking care of each other. So I mean, the communication piece is absolutely key. We got to be communicating verbally, non-verbally, body language, all of it. The best thing is when you can look across the ring. I can look across the ring and I can know what the guy's thinking because of the way he's standing or the way his hands are or what he's doing. And there are several guys over there, man, we can get in the ring and not say a word and wrestle a 5-star match. And it just comes with their professionalism, how good they are, and then spending 20 years with these guys.
Awesome. So we already talked about your favorite Bible verse, and you told us why. You said it's Titus 1:7. I think that's what you said, right?
I did, yes.
When somebody comes and interacts with Phil the Real Deal Bishop in the CWF ring, whether it be a fan or an opponent, what do you hope they leave thinking about you?
I hope they leave. Well, with the fans, I want to suspend their belief. I mean, Pop, it's 2023. The curtain's been pulled back. Fans are wise. So to me, the ultimate compliment is when I do something and I make it a point to make eye contact with the people in the crowd. And when you see them scratching their head going, are those guys really fighting? That is the ultimate compliment that I can get, is when I suspend someone's belief and they think that I'm literally about to tear someone's head off. The person in the ring, I want them to leave knowing that I was one of the best opponents that they've ever been in the ring with. I want them leaving going like, wow, that guy knows what he's doing. That guy's a professional.
What do you hope to leave the stamp on CWF as a whole?
As far as hopefully to be a righteous and holy man that people can look up to and say, that's what a real man of God is like. Because there's so few authentically real men of God left in the world. And I want people to say that guy is a real man of God.
Okay. So while I had the next couple of questions I've had help with.
Okay.
First of all, this is a question I didn't get help with. Is your favorite band Skillet?
No.
No? I thought I read that your favorite band was Skillet. You like Skillet?
I do like Skillet. I don't think they're my favorite band.
Okay. So I got some help asking this stuff. Supposedly you think you're quite possibly the funniest man on the planet.
No. I do not think I'm quite possibly the funniest man. I have been introduced many times as quite possibly the funniest man, but I did not give myself that moniker. That was given to me by Ryan Hart in Jos, Nigeria.
Yes, of course. So there was a little known joke about how he talked to him that I guess, I don't know, I think it was Jeremy talked to you up to introducing him as the American missionaries on the first CWF mission trip. Nigeria, does that make any sense? Was there an interaction?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Can you go walk us through that event?
Okay, so we get to Nigeria, and we don't know what to expect. It's Africa. We get to Africa, and there were 4 or 5 American female missionaries, younger missionaries that were there, and I'm an outgoing guy. I'm a type A personality. I guess I can come across as a flirt. I don't necessarily mean it that way. So I was asking the different missionaries, hey, how did you get the call to go into missions work? And so the different girls were telling me, it was this or it was that. But there was one girl that I asked, so how did you get the call to be a foreign missionary? And she interpreted that as I was leaving my wife and children and wanted to marry her.
Oh.
And Pop, that is not what that question was about. So now, I like to have fun. I like to joke around. And when I'm around Jeremy, I will tell you, man, inhibitions go out the window and I just become a different guy. So
awesome.
What can I say?
You guys seem like you have a very tight knit group of guys that love each other, and so
we do.
Despite his temper and antics in the ring, Bishop is one of the most loyal members of CWF. That was told to me by your friend. So Jeremy, he said that.
It's absolutely true. I've never really considered going somewhere else. I got the invitation to do that show out in Arkansas. Rob didn't want me to go, but I wanted to see what I had against some different people, and went. And I mean, it was a great experience. Tim Storm, who was a big star there, told me it was probably the closest experience to being backstage at WWE that he'd ever been at. So it was a phenomenal experience. But yeah, I'm like Sting. I am CWF through and through. I've never really considered going anywhere else. I don't want to wrestle anywhere else. I've been asked to wrestle other places, and I'm just like, nah, I'm okay. I mean, it's really about the ministry. It's so refreshing to be able to use my talent to wrestle, which is what I've always wanted to do, but to do it for God. And I don't get to do that anywhere else.
Right. So you claim to be the man who's putting sports back into sports entertainment.
Yep.
You walk us through the reason, what that means.
I mean, that goes back to my comment earlier. I hate this idea of sports entertainment. And the reason why I didn't like WWF growing up is because when I was growing up in the 80s, WWF was a cartoon show. They had cartoon characters, and it was entertainment. But you flip the channel to NWA. You flip the channel to AWA. You flip the channel to World Class Championship Wrestling. That was a sport. We talked earlier about Ric Flair was billed as the recognized world champion because it was a sport. And I think that's been taken away over the last 20 years since WWE dominated and took over everything. And it became sports entertainment. And I do not consider myself a sports entertainer. I'm a professional wrestler. So I am the guy that's going to put sports back in sports entertainment.
So before we have you close the show,
all right,
there's something a video that was sent to the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast quarters, and I have it up ready for you. It's gonna play. It's Phil's falling off a ladder school.
Play it, my friend.
Here we go.
Have you ever wondered how to fall off a 20-foot ladder when you're watching your favorite WWE DVD and you hear good old JR say, how do you learn to fall off a 20-foot ladder? Well, the answer is at Phil's Falling Off a Ladder School. We will teach you how to fall off a 6-foot ladder, an 8-foot ladder, a 10-foot ladder, and then the big doozy, the 20-foot ladder. So if you are interested in learning how to fall off the ladder and you're in the greater Balch Springs, Seacaville, Cedar Creek, Gun Barrel City area, well, this Saturday, behind the bob-shaped ice in the field over by the Dollar General, we're going to be giving free lessons. And if you survive falling off the ladder, we're going to have a special for you to join Phil's Falling Off the Ladder School right here in CWF Fate, Texas.
That's probably one of the funniest things I've ever played on this podcast. All right, so what is that?
Okay, so when we used to go on road trips, we had a 15-passenger van with a DVD player in it, and that was the time when we would watch all of our WWE DVDs. And what does Jim Ross say before every WWE DVD? How do you learn to fall off a 20-foot ladder? So one day during practice, getting ready for a ladder match, and I came up with the idea of Phil's Falling Off the Ladder School. So we put that together as a satirical comedy thing, but I got so many people interested thinking that I was literally giving falling off a ladder lessons. And no, I'm not giving falling off a ladder lessons. It was 100% satirical, but it was all in response to Jim Ross wanting to know, how do you learn to fall off the 20-foot ladder? I'm the guy to teach you.
That is awesome. I will say that was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I'm glad you liked it.
I was like, and the tone of your voice, it was like, that was funny. So I'm just going to put that out there. Your buddy JT sent that to me, by the way. So,
he was asking about it earlier, so I had a feeling it was going to come up.
So what would, before you close the show, what would be one of the craziest road trips, road events that happened with you guys. Now it's your turn to
Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore, Maryland.
The trip started off awful, and it only went downhill from there. We left at midnight, immediately got a flat tire. That should have been our first cue. We get to Baltimore, and this church thought it was a good idea to put the gym on the second floor. So we literally had to take the ring out of the trailer, hoist it up 2 flights to get it in the windows to set the ring up. Okay. So they didn't advertise very well. So there weren't a lot of people there. I was staying with the pastor and his wife that night. We get done with the show. It was a good show. The wrestling was good. There just wasn't a lot of people there. I get out of the shower. I'm in the guest room, and the preacher's wife comes, and she stands in the doorway, and she goes, "I don't get it." And I go, "You don't get what?" She goes, I don't get why y'all do this." And I said, I explain, well, professional wrestling, the gospel, we're wrestlers who are Christians, and we want to present the gospel. We use our talents, and people. But I go through the whole thing, and she just goes, "I don't get it." Okay. Well, then we were supposed to have our chiropractic work taken care of for us while we were there. We get to the chiropractor. We don't. We were supposed to have the gym we were working at taken care of for us. We get to the gym. We don't. And it ended up being the best, worst trip we've ever been on. Anything that could go wrong went wrong, but it was such a great trip. Just the camaraderie, the guys being together, pulling together as a team, overcome the adversities. We got to go to our nation's capital. We got to tour Washington, D.C., and we couldn't get out of there quick enough. But Baltimore, Maryland was probably the craziest road trip I've ever been on.
Awesome. Well, we'd like to do at the end of the CWF show, give you the floor to either share your testimony or pray for people or just tell people what's on your heart. So I'm going to give you the floor. Whatever's on your heart at the moment, Mr. Bishop, just let it go.
Thank you, Huge Pop. June 27th, 1982, the most important day of my life. I was 7 years old. I'm sitting in the back seat of my mother's station wagon. We were traveling to her best friend's house, and my sister Cindy, sitting in the front seat, asked the most odd question I've ever heard asked. She asked my mom, "Am I saved?" And my mom said yes. And in my 7-year-old mind, I'm thinking, saved from what? Was she drowning? Was she stuck in a tree? Was there a building on fire and somebody put a ladder up? What does she mean, am I saved? Then my sister Melanie, sitting in the back seat next to me, asks my mom the same question. "Well, Mom, am I saved?" And my mom said, "Yes, Melanie, you're saved." And I can't wrap my mind around what were they saved from, but Cindy saved, Melanie saved. Obviously, I'm saved. So 7-year-old Phil Bishop, "Mom, am I saved?" And then Mom said, "No, baby, you're not." And I got so angry. I remember stewing the whole day. I was so mad. And that night, just like every night, my mom came in my room to pray with me. And as I'm laying in the bed in my little Superman pajamas, I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, why am I not saved?" And she said, "Baby, because you've never received Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior." I said, "What do I have to do, Mom?" She walked me down the Romans road. She told me how all had sinned and come short of the glory of God, that no one was perfect, no, not one. And then she told me Romans 10, verse 9, that if I confess Jesus with my mouth and I believe in my heart God raised him from the dead, I will be saved. And on June 27th, 1982, I did. I confessed Jesus as Lord. I believed God raised him from the dead. And my mom prayed with me, and I received Jesus Christ into my life that night. So on June 27th, 1982, was the day Phil, the real deal Bishop, was really born into his spiritual birth to become the man that he is today.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Again, I thank you guys from CWF for sharing your story. That just, in every way, it helps me get through the day. So I appreciate you guys. I know you're going to Bible study, so I'm just gonna be bold and ask you for a prayer request to take to the men. My mom is getting weaker and weaker.
Okay.
She told us about 3 months ago she had 8 months to live. I seen her. I got to see her back September. We had great 4 days together. We loved it. We laughed. I was asking God as we're sitting in her living room, when is the good time to leave? Because I had to get back to Grand Rapids to fly home. I was like, God, show me the right time to leave. And I'm just praying this all day long. And I'm just watching over the 4 days. It was just amazing, and she spoke and she says, I just want to share. She shared this happy, joyful, what was on her heart. And I was like, and God said, that's the time. And I said, Mom, you're laughing. I'm laughing. It's time for me to say, see you later. We hugged and we laughed and we didn't cry. And I was like, that was awesome, and but as I talked to her, try to talk to her every like 3 times a week, and she's getting weaker and weaker, and I could tell the pain's becoming more, and so I know the time is close.
Yeah.
So I just asked prayer for her.
You got it.
And prayer for her strength to understand.
Absolutely.
So,
Huge Pop, you are covered in prayer, but CWF has you covered in prayer. We're going to pray for you tonight. Just as soon as we get over there for Bible study, and just know that you will be in our prayers. So if you need something, you reach out to us on the Facebook channel, reach out to JT, Jeremy, whatever you need, bud. We are here to pray for you and to hold you up. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
We appreciate you at Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Huge Pop. This is our boy, Phil, the real deal, Bishop. We just went through Wrestling with Purpose. Stay on the line, Phil, if you will. I will be right. I'm going to play an exit song, 1 minute long. So I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
Sounds good.
All my dogs, make some noise up in this house.
Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out. Who is in the house? Who is in the house? It's the gangster of destruction, so you know what's going down. And when the drive-by's coming, then you better hit the grind. Cause when your body hits the canvas, then your head is knocked out.
Fight with Adrian Whisper is like a fight with the